Today, we have a special guest with us, Kym Hamer, and her company is called Building Brand You. And I want to give her a warm welcome. Thank you so much for being with us today, Kym. And I'd like you to start by giving us a brief introduction of yourself.
Firstly, thank you for having me. It is wonderful to be here. So yes, where do I start? So the strange accent, let's get that out of the way. I was born in Australia, and 20 years ago, I moved to London in the UK. So if you're an Australian listening to this, you'll think I sound weird. If you're a British person listening to this, you'll think I sound Australian, and everybody else is probably really confused about my accent. So we'll get that out of the way so you know and you're not wondering about it. So I left my corporate career about 5 years ago now. I worked in all sorts of organizations, from big corporates to family businesses, in food, in digital media, in packaging, and I loved the work I did. So I did marketing and innovation and strategy, and worked with some really big players in the world, people like Coca-Cola and Red Bull and Heineken. I had the opportunity to have a gap year. And when I went back to look for a job, I realized there was no Kym-shaped box that existed. And so I had an epiphany about, well, I'd better get out and build it myself. So I started my own business, which is, so the business name is Artemis Futures, but we trade as Building Brand You. And it is all about unlocking your greatest asset, you. I work with leaders. I'm a leadership, visibility and impact coach. I do one-to-one coaching programs with senior leaders, executives, individuals who are just at a point in their life where they're really wanting to sort of amplify who they are and have that be the driver for building the career or the business or the life they want. So I absolutely love what I do. And my whole premise is to be, I walk the walk. You know, I'm someone who's actually done that. I've built my own brand. I've left a career and reinvented myself. And I, you know, I'm really about I don't want to say living your best life, but living a life that you love, and you love by design instead of by default. So that's me. I have a team of 4 who I've never met. That is the joy of remote working and the world we all live in now. And they are amazing. I could not do what I do without them. And my favorite thing to do ever in the world is read. If you can't find me, I'm in the corner with a book. So, yeah.
I can relate to that. I'm actually a former teacher and principal, and I was an English major. And so, yes, my kids often make fun of me. So.
What a thing to be made fun of. It's lovely.
I know. We all have our thing, and mine is definitely books. That's one of mine, definitely. Constantly. Yeah. Okay, so you've shared a lot already about what it is that you do, but if you were to just sum it all up, how would you best describe what it is that you do for your business? Sort of your elevator pitch.
Yeah, so I am a visibility, impact, and leadership coach, and I help you unlock your greatest asset, which is you, all to help you get where you want to go, not where everybody tells you you need to go.
Okay, so on that note, then I would like to know, when you made the decision to start your own business, you said that there wasn't a place that you found was uniquely for you. I'd like to know, how were you able to sort of tease out what you would do? And I want you to hold that question, because what I'm getting at is a lot of people will have a career and then they get burned out, or they want to switch for various reasons. And the first thing they want to do is throw away all of that experience and try something new. And so I'd like to hear what that journey was like for you. How did you decide what you would do?
Absolutely. And, you know, while I say it like, you know, I had an epiphany, I needed to go and build the Kym-shaped box, I didn't know what that was really going to look like. I just I just knew that there was this process of something else that I didn't know what it was going to look like. So, you know, it was quite an uncertain space about what this Kym shaped box was going to be, and it continues to evolve. So I had that epiphany about I need to stop looking for a job and I need to go and build something for me in September of 2018. And by 1st of January 2019, I set up a business. I didn't quite know what I was going to do with that. I went and invested in some coaching. I had a one-day intensive with a international business coach. I still invest in coaching to this day, but it was about not waiting till it was perfect and sort of getting in there and trying stuff out. So I'd had some really great experiences in my business career. So I had turned around businesses. I'd been involved in sort of startup divisions. And so I knew some of the things I wanted to do, but I needed to think about who I was going to do them for. So it took me probably about 6 months of just testing out. You know, I did some work with an entrepreneur accelerator in London. I did some speaking. I ran some workshops that were a little bit about the journey I'd been on, about, you know, what I was great at, what I wanted to try, all of those sorts of things. And that actually sits at the heart of one of our Building Brand New programs, still to this day, 5 years later. And then it was probably towards the end of that year, I was starting to think, well, I don't think coming out and saying I'm a business coach makes sense. 1, no one knows what that is. 2, no one knows what that does. And 3, it doesn't talk about any benefits to anybody. So I thought I need to be more niche. And I'd been playing around with this idea of building brand new, coming from a marketing background, having been through this process of having to not rely on all of the networks and the reputation I had in corporate. All of a sudden I went, well, this is a different market. I really need to earn my stripes and find out what it is that people want. And it was in testing building brand new on social media. Actually, I've always been a big advocate of posting on social media and trying stuff out. And the response was fantastic, to say the least. And then the pandemic hit, and then people also started to say, I feel invisible, I feel disconnected. And all of a sudden I went, that's what building brand new is about. It's about unlocking you. You are your greatest asset. It's not about throwing out the baby with the bathwater, as we say. You know, when you leave your corporate career to do something else or whatever you've done before, you know, as my friend's son would say, you've got some mad skills. It's just about learning to think about them differently, talk about them differently, and actually, you know, use them as your superpower instead of turning around and saying, well, I don't want to do any of that anymore. There is stuff that is sitting in you that I am passionate about unlocking, helping you to harness it and teaching you how to articulate and amplify it so that it really becomes your superpower.
Right. So you mentioned that you did some testing. And I'd like to hear a little bit more specifically about what that process was for you, because I think a lot of times people post and they do it because they see someone else doing it. Maybe they haven't invested in a coach and they think that they're just supposed to put up things that are random. And so sometimes you do have to figure out how to do market research, but talk us through what your process or your thought process is around testing out something new that you're trying to do.
Yeah, great question. I think it's this dichotomy, actually, between you and people out there. So your brand does not exist inside your head. It exists in the world of other people. But in order to be clear for other people about what you're about, you need to do some reflection and some defining, I guess, about who you are and what you represent. So the minute I moved from business to marketing to building brand new, that's when I took off. And it's also about thinking about, well, what is it I'm great at? what is my superpower and how does it serve the people I most want to work with? So there's the superpower that I have. So I am hugely creative. I'm very visionary. And these are questions you can ask other people to feed back to you. What am I great at? Don't ask anything else. What am I great at? I get creativity, self-disciplined, visionary, and something always about great energy or enthusiasm or something like that. So I think, okay, well, they're very natural things for me. They're things that just kind of happen. So let's leverage those. And sometimes it's about trying stuff on a bit like a jumper, sometimes, or a sweater, I think you'd call it in the US, pardon me. You try it on. Sometimes it fits and you go, this is amazing, I'm going to wear it forever. Sometimes you try it on for a while and then it doesn't quite work out. So you take the jumper off and put it in the back of the cupboard. Sometimes you try it on and go, no, this is not for me. And sometimes, it's just about you take the jumper off for a while and then you put the sweater back on and, just test stuff out, be willing to test stuff out. So that's you. Then the second part of that is don't just think about ideal client. The way I think about it is who are the people I do my best work with? So when you were in your job, or what kinds of people do you really produce your best work with? And use that as the basis for thinking about, well, that's the audience I want to attract, because that's where I do my best work. They love working with me. So it's about, you trying on different things that your favorite people to work with might need from you or want from you. It's that balance about testing out and just seeing what lands. Social media, I think, is challenging for most people because we're not consistent enough and don't stick with it enough to actually see where the result lies. So that's actually, there's a whole lot of tools that, I developed and I coach people in. It's about consistency, frequency, and just, showing up where your audience is. Don't think you have to have a Facebook, I need to get my Facebook advertising sorted out. If the audience that will pay for what you do aren't on Facebook, you can test stuff out for free. I don't do any paid advertising. All of mine is organic.
Nice.
And there are, it's a lot of my background, but it's a lot of setting up systems and templates. So it makes it easy for you to produce it and not come to Thursday and go, oh, I haven't posted for 3 days. How do I put something on? What happened to me? There's actually, you can actually create a really simple process and build the muscle around creating consistent content that also is a match for who you are and what you offer.
Okay. So I have a question about that. You said, or you recommend not to just look at your target audience, but you want people to focus on truly who it is that you work best with. And I find that when I'm coaching individuals, a lot of times they have a heart to help people. And so sometimes they come to the realization that, hey, the people that I want to help the most or that I think I want to help, may not be in a position to afford my services. And so you really do have to look at what your customer looks like the person, not only can they pay for it, but who actually will get a result because they're committed and not just interested in what you're doing. They're going to actually do the work to get the results. How do you reconcile that? Or was that an issue for you?
For that, it was, it wasn't so much a question, but I had some very clear ground rules, I think. So I don't just work with everybody. I am a coach who expects you to do homework. And I'm coached. And I look for people who are coachable. It's not just being committed. It's, are you willing to stand in a different place, in an uncomfortable place, and take the coaching? Now, if that's not for you, that's fine. I'm not the coach for you. Some people kind of go, oh, that feels quite hard going, but if you want the transformational result, you've got to put in the work and you've got to stand in the uncomfortable place. That's my belief. Now, whether that's true for every coach is a different thing, but that's my lane, and that's the promise that I sell. And I don't try to be anything different, because then it doesn't work, it doesn't flow, the client doesn't get the result. I don't feel like I'm being at my most effective. And that's why I talk about the people you work best with. I also believe that from an investing point of view, coaching is an investment. So if you want to be a coach, you are not helping people. You need to stop. What I would say is, it's not about helping people. This is about producing a result and arming them with the tools to get it for themselves. That's my real philosophy. I don't, help people. I show them how to do it. I hold them accountable, and I pay attention to things that might be in the way and invite them to have a look at how they can remove those barriers or obstacles. So for me, it's a very focused, what's the outcome, what you want, at the end of our time together, what would success look like at the end of whatever program we're doing. And then the coaching is focused on that. So it's not about drifting off into other things. It's about going, okay, you wanted to achieve this, and it's not about drifting off when it starts to feel a bit uncomfortable or that sort of thing. It's about standing in the place and saying, I'm committed to that. I'm committed to that. How do I get there? And what's the transformation? What's the breakthrough going to be that will allow me to stand over there instead of standing over here? Right. Does that kind of answer that question?
It does. It does.
Great.
It does. It does. Okay, so I want to go back to something that you said earlier when we first started talking, because I think that when you're someone who is an aspiring entrepreneur, or maybe you've been doing it and you just want to grow, social media can be a double-edged sword. You can see so many people showing their success on social media because that's what we're told to do. That's what we're trained to do. Let's be honest here. Our coaches do want us to celebrate our wins, but it's also important that people understand that you have to have a certain amount of persistence to stick with it. Just to even get to the point where you have success, you have to do a lot of building. So you said that in 2018, you started thinking about the idea, and I think you said 2018 of November, maybe? Is that what you said?
September.
September. And then by January of 2019, you started. So my question is, who did you have to become during that time, from September of 2018 until January of 2019, to take that bold step that's led you to where you are now?
Oh, what a great question. I don't think I've ever been asked that before. Who did I have to become? So I think the first thing I became was dissatisfied with not finding a Kym-shaped box. And I think most entrepreneurs, to be fair, we become entrepreneurs because we're dissatisfied with something and we think we can fix it or contribute something to it or that sort of thing. So I think the dissatisfaction with where I'd been before. The second thing was, when I say being brave, it's not that I sort of went, oh, I have to be brave. It was almost like, if I want what I want, I need to shift something. I need to do something, and I need to learn as I go. And I know that for a lot of people in life, not just aspiring entrepreneurs, what we can do is say, well, I really want to do that. I've had this idea, and we try and plan it into this perfect launch or this perfect start. And I've learned in life there is no such thing. Now, I wouldn't ever say to anybody, just quit your job and don't consider your financial situation or your family. I would never advocate that. But I was in a position where I had a little bit of a package left from a redundancy payout from a couple of years ago. I don't have dependents. I don't have children. I don't have, family that depends on me or anything like that. And I was in a position where I thought, this is about inventing something new, and being open to what that looks like. So I think it was about being curious, brave, I think, and becoming the person who created a future for herself instead of waited for someone to do that for her.
That's huge.
Yeah, and it's something, I'm sort of 4.5 years down the track from that, and I was talking to somebody about something the other day. We have, there's something I'm doing in November, which, we may talk about a little bit later, but, I said yes to it. And sometimes it is about creating the future you want to step into instead of, trying to get all the blocks in place. Someone said to me years and years ago, a great coach said, sometimes you've got to throw your hat over the wall, because then you have to go and get the hat. You have to leap over the wall and actually go and get it. If you spend your whole life hanging onto your hat on this side of the wall, there's no incentive. There's no push that has you go, all right, it's time to take the step. It's time to be bold. It's time to actually stand for what I really want instead of just talking about it. So yeah, there was all of that going on. And I think that shift, when I did that as an entrepreneur, I've noticed that, that has now, it's not, a super muscle that I've built, but it's something I do often, and it's something I'm known for, this ability to reinvent, to invent from nothing. I think that's another quality that entrepreneurs have. We invent from nothing, but the key is to invent from nothing based on the stuff you are great at and the stuff you are really interested in learning. So you talked before about persistence. Yeah, this is, it's not an overnight success, nor is it a straight upwards trajectory, if you like. This is a roller coaster, and it does take persistence. It takes celebrating the highs. It takes really acknowledging, where you are and how you've grown as a person. Yeah.
Okay. So I had I guess I would say a mentor say this to me once, and I'm going to quote him, and I want you to think about what you think it means, and if you've seen it play out in your life. And if you haven't, how would you take that and how would you apply it?
Right.
So I was debating about making a decision about something that I really wanted, but I was a little bit afraid. And so, but the outcome was it was going to ultimately contribute in a big way to my success and my business. And so he said to me, sometimes you have to get in over your head. And my mind started racing. And so I'd like to know what would a quote like that mean to you?
Oh yeah, like I completely get it. Just jump in, you'll work it out. So there's all these fancy terms for things like, adaptive leadership and emergent, and they all have a structure and a design and a science around them. But actually, I think life, not just entrepreneurship, it's about making it up as we go along. We can have a plan, but we know what life's like. So I just think, get in over your head is, don't be afraid of getting in over your head, because getting in over your head and emerging from it gives you a confidence that even if you don't know the answer, there is a way. You are capable of so much more than you think you are capable of. And I think that getting in over your head, when I say it's not for the faint-hearted, it doesn't, you don't have to be a special person to get in over your head. I'd also say get in over your head, but know that you have a circle around you. And sometimes my getting in over my head has introduced more of a certain type of people into my circle, has made me more open and more adaptive and things like that. So I love that expression. I think that's a great, I might steal that from your mentor and use that with my coachees, if that's okay. Get in over your head.
I can have a Kym-shaped box.
Yes, you can. You can have a Wanika shaped box. How's that?
Even exchange taken.
Even, yeah.
Okay, so on this journey, like throughout becoming an entrepreneur, did you find that you had to build new relationships as far as it went with friends or maybe family members who didn't understand or who didn't support what you wanted to do?
Yes, is the short answer. And in a couple of ways. So I am incredibly grateful for my family. And when I say my family, there's a very, very tight group of friends that I have as well, that I consider them family. And I appreciate, and my family and I have talked about this before, particularly my sister, is that I am someone who will get in over my head, who will take the leap, who will go and try it out and learn as I go. And my sister says, I love that you do it. I don't necessarily want to live my life like that. She said, but you will have been gone, done it, come back with a report, and we're still all, deciding whether we even might think about doing it. So I love that.
What a compliment.
About you. Yeah, it was a really, I think it was a really defining kind of conversation in our relationship, because we were talking about the role we held in each other's lives. How people often say, well, that person's the life of the party. That one's the organizer. That one's the one I go to when I'm having a really difficult time and they're always supportive. We have kind of different roles with different people in our lives. And to have that kind of conversation was amazing. I also understand that when I do stuff like that and I get in over my head and I struggle and I fight for things and I worry and all of that, that worries them too. But we've developed over the years this relationship where I used to feel guilty about worrying them and concerning them. And while I'm not immune to the fact that they're worried about me, I kind of go, well, that's because they love me and they care about me and they naturally want me to be happy in what I do and successful in what I do. So I am unbelievably blessed to have that in my life, both with my direct family and with a couple of really close friends of mine. The other part of it is you talked about, did I have to build a new circle in terms of, people who perhaps weren't supportive or that sort of thing. And I've been, I haven't had people who've been unsupportive, but what I did have was a circle in corporate life that didn't really understand what becoming an entrepreneur meant. And while they were supportive, sometimes their advice or their support wasn't incredibly useful or empowering. So, and I say that with enormous love. So one of the things I had to do, and I think this is one of the biggest realizations for me, was I had to go and build this new circle that was about nourishing and supporting and sort of being a safe space for my entrepreneurial journey, whether it was going well, whether it was going a bit rubbish. And that was about people who were in the same space as me. So we were sort of starting out in the entrepreneurial journey together, or where I am now 4 or 5 years in. And then I also had made sure in that circle were people that were, they might have been a few years ahead of me, maybe different sectors, but also in the coaching space. So it was about surrounding myself with this sort of community that allowed me to keep exploring who I was as an entrepreneur. I've had some very high level coaches who are, multi-millionaires and have, hundreds of businesses or, big companies and all of that sort of thing, and who do a lot of speaking. So what I've tried to do is sort of create this new community. Now, it's not that I left all the other ones, but what happens, I think,